Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Sinisterum. Make sure you like and subscribe. Today, we're going to be talking about the bizarre, mysterious disappearance of Brian Shaffer. Don't miss it. A night out with friends. A few drinks, laughter, cameras, crowds, and then nothing. No trace, no clue, no goodbye. In the early hours of April 1st, 2006, Brian Shaffer walked into a bar and was never seen again. Not by friends, not by family, not by anyone. And the strangest part? There's video proof that he walked in, but none showing him leave. Brian was a 27-year-old med student at Ohio State University. Smart, ambitious, a bit of a dreamer. He loved music, especially Jimmy Buffett, and often joked about leaving it all behind to live on a beach and play guitar. But life wasn't easy. Just weeks earlier, Brian's mother had passed away from cancer. He was grieving, working through finals, and planning a getaway to Miami with his girlfriend, a trip where many believed he would propose. On the night of March 31st, 2006, Brian went out with his friend Clint to blow off steam. They started at a few bars near campus and eventually made their way to the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a second-floor bar in the University District. Surveillance cameras showed Brian arriving just after 1:15 a.m. He was seen talking with two women near the escalator, and then gone. He was never seen exiting, not through the front, not on any other camera. Nothing. The bar had only one public entrance, the same one covered by cameras. The only other way out was through a back door, into a construction site filled with debris, fences, and danger. Police scoured hours of footage, surrounding bars, the alleyways, nothing. Brian's phone went silent, until months later, when a call to it rang 3 times before going dead. The cell tower pinged in Hilliard, a suburb 14 miles away. But nothing came of it. Some theories are almost too bizarre to believe. Did Brian slip out in disguise? Was he lured out the back and met with foul play? Did he fall victim to the so-called smiley face killers, a string of young men found dead in water across the Midwest? And then there's Clint, the last known person to see Brian that night. He refused to take a polygraph, refused to speak further to investigators. To this day, he remains silent. Brian's family held on to hope. His father, Randy, became a relentless voice in the search, until in 2008, tragedy struck again. Randy was killed when a tree fell during a windstorm. His obituary carried a message: missing, Brian Shaffer, son, still loved, still missed. No body, no evidence, no closure. What happened to Brian Shaffer? A man walks into a bar and vanishes. In a world of constant surveillance, endless data, and thousands of eyes, how does someone simply disappear? If he's alive, where is he? And if not, who took him and why? Some stories are about what we see, but this one is about what we don't. Brian's image is frozen in time, smiling, waving, stepping into the Ugly Tuna Saloona, and then gone. If you have any information about the disappearance of Brian Shaffer, contact the Columbus Police Department. Even the smallest clue could be the one that breaks this mystery wide open. What's up, folks? Welcome to Sinisterum. Thank you for sticking around and joining us here today. As you already saw, we are talking about the Brian Shaffer disappearance. My name is Caleb.
And I'm Josh.
And we're going to tackle this case together. So here we go. Let's jump right in. Josh, first of all, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Just getting ready for the fourth
Right on.
Fourth of July. Um, just been enjoying the nice weather.
Right on. I saw this sweet meme that made me laugh that said, uh, hundreds of Americans don't know that this week will be the last week they have 10 fingers.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I've actually almost lost my own finger shooting off fireworks. I was
Really?
holding a
What were you
smoke.
doing?
I was holding a smoke bomb once, and it blew out the back and burnt the crap out of my finger.
A
So
smoke bomb? Jeez. Hey,
yeah,
actually, there is a video on YouTube somewhere. I'm gonna have to dig this up of us having a Roman candle fight. I think it's on one of my old channels. Maybe I'll stick it in right here so you guys can see it. It's pretty fun.
yep,
Okay, so back to this case. So we're talking about the insane, strange disappearance of Brian Shaffer. This one is definitely a head scratcher because it defies all odds. I mean, it's just so bizarre when you dive into the details. So there's a couple things I'm going to ask you first, Josh, and we'll just kind of go through section by section. The first thing we're going to talk about is the disappearance itself. So, do you, Josh, think it's even physically possible for Brian to have left without being seen on camera?
yeah. I think, especially that time and era, there could be a possibility that he might have left sight unseen or unheard of. Whether that is alive or dead, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it talks about, surveillance didn't catch him leaving, not even the service exits. So, it kind of seemed like at first I was like, do they just have cameras like in the front of the ugly tuna saloona or do they have them in the back? But I think, they probably had them at both exits. I guess I can't confirm that, but from what the case was talking about, it seems like they both had, surveillance, but, yeah, the fact that he was not seen leaving either is the part that always trips me up for sure.
Yeah,
I guess the question would be, are there any, security angles or blind spots that he could have slipped past? But
yeah.
go ahead.
But I mean, if there is a construction zone in the back, they could have disconnected any surveillance if they were doing any additional like add-ons or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true. So what's your gut reaction? Is this a tragic accident or is this something deliberate? Murder.
I think I think right now I stand at possibly being an accident. I mean, having a few beers at the bar, who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they were there for like 4 hours, I think. It was pretty, I think they didn't, Clint didn't leave until like 2 a.m. or something like that. So 4 hours of drinking, you know, you're probably going to be kind of messed up.
Yeah. Who knows what if they remember anything or if Clint remembers anything. That's there can be a lot of beer put down in 4 hours.
For sure. So here, let me ask you this: if you were a detective and you saw the footage, the footage that we do have, where would your head go first?
Well, first off, I think with the construction zone, I mean, I there's all sorts of I don't even know. It looks like they went up an escalator. So
Yeah, he was with those two women. Yeah,
it's probably second story. Um, so with the construction zone in the back, he could have he could have fallen somewhere. Um, I know there's typically these giant dumpsters when there's construction zones. So who knows? He could have possibly fallen into one of those dumpsters and people might not have seen him and he could have gotten more construction rubble thrown on top of him the next day. So off the bat,
that's true.
that's what I think.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't really think about that. You're right. There are those giant dumpsters that they always keep around at construction sites, and I didn't think about that. I mean, we do have the footage of him talking to the two women going up the escalator, and obviously, uh, there maybe there wasn't an exit, from the Ugly Tuna Saloon out the back, but there had to be on the back of the building. But if there was some sort of a fire escape or something, maybe he climbed out there, maybe he just fell off, like you said, fell into um, some sort of a garbage receptacle, and then passed out or was knocked out and laid there. And some of the construction guys in the beginning and the next day came and threw rubble on top of him. You just never know. It's impossible. You don't see over the side of those garbage bins. They're huge, so you never know what you're throwing stuff on as you're throwing
Hmm.
it over the edge. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, and that's a theory that they didn't really even discuss. Uh, Let me ask you this. Do you think Clint is hiding something or just hates the police? I know, he would not agree to take a polygraph test, which is, I've watched enough Dateline to know that that is a huge, usually a pretty big red flag if you have nothing to hide. He also lawyered up. So if you have nothing to hide, that's pretty sketchy.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if he's his best friend, it is a little sketchy that he didn't want to take a line detective, like a line test, but at the same time, I'm sure he doesn't really want to talk about his friend gone missing and never seeing him again. It's
Yeah.
people deal with things different ways. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's that element of being, feeling uh, guilty for, survivor's guilt type thing, where it's like he's the one who made it out. Let's say they went on a bender or whatever, and uh, just like someone who comes out of a terrible accident, they're the only one who survived. You kind of
mhm,
you kind of have that survivor's guilt. Clint could possibly be thinking, oh, why didn't that happen to me? Um, Especially with
exactly.
everything that Brian was going through with the death of his mom and all that kind of thing. So who knows? I mean, it doesn't seem nefarious. I don't think Clint. I don't get the feeling that Clint was doing something nefarious or had any ill intent toward Brian.
Hmm.
But I mean, who knows? So here's a couple plausible theories that they have brought forward. There's really six of them. He slipped out during a camera blind spot. That could be, I don't know. We do have to take into consideration that this was, well before people were used to, having cameras on every street corner, cameras in their hands, and in phones. This was back at the time of, you get your sweet flip phone and you're using T9 Word to text. So um, that, I mean, that could be a possibility. It's just technology has come so far
Hmm.
since then. Um, Second one, foul play by Clint or a stranger. I know that it had been mentioned that the smiley face killer could be, could be, this could be one of the smiley face killer victims. I don't know. I think if I remember right, the smiley face killer really killed around bodies of water and left people, there. And so
I
I don't get
mean,
the feeling that this was them.
yeah. I mean, tuna come from water. He-
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna throw the police off the trail. I'm just gonna go hit up the ugly tuna saloona.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It does
You
sound
know, you
fishy
never
though.
know. It definitely sounds fishy. So I think this one at number three, this is probably the most plausible that I think, and you already alluded to it, but an accidental death hidden in construction. I mean, that just seems like if he gets covered by rubble in a big garbage, receptacle, and then is taken away, there's the element that we didn't really talk about where his phone pinged, I think like a month later off a tower that was like 20 miles away. Now, let's just talk about this for a second. So, if you compare, like I've got an iPhone 15, if you compare it to like a Motorola Razr that I had when I was in high school, that thing would last. The battery on that thing would last forever, especially if you weren't using it. And so if he went to the Ugly Tuna Saloona and he had a full charge, and let's say he falls into a garbage receptacle, and then is has some garbage or debris thrown on top of him, and he passes away, and then that receptacle is then taken to I think it was Hilliard, like 20 miles away or whatever. It's plausible that his battery on his phone would still be full and fully charged
Mm-hmm.
because of that technology, like that, those batteries lasting forever. So if someone was calling him and then it rings, uh it could plausibly ping off that close tower, and that could explain it, in my opinion. There's also these weird kind of instances where sometimes you like have service in a certain spot for a second and then you don't. And so, because what comes to my mind is like maybe they were trying to call him for a month and then all of a sudden it goes through. That's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard stories where, all of a sudden in a place that doesn't really have good service, it'll just like you'll have service for a second and it doesn't really make any sense, but it just happens sometimes. So I think that's pretty plausible. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really plausible. I mean, who knows? It'd be interesting to look up on a map and see where the nearest dump site is compared to where his phone pinged. Um, so
Yeah,
I don't know. Somebody
that's a
go.
good point.
Somebody look that up for us.
Yeah. And then email us. I would love to hear about that too. Or put it in the comments. Number 4, suicide or a mental breakdown. I really am skeptical of that because he was just about to get married. Most people, he's just, or not married, but engaged. At least that's what it seemed like to family and friends, because he was just about to go on a, vacation with his fiance, and it all signs kind of pointed to that he was going to propose on this trip. So, you would have to be, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to have a huge life change that's happy and joyous and then like kill yourself. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and on top of that, he has a good job. He's a doctor. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it doesn't sound plausible. The only possible situation I see it is maybe he feels trapped, um, doesn't actually enjoy his job, and his girlfriend is insane. And there's
Well, we all know that can happen. Yeah, totally. I mean, it would be pretty bizarre, pretty outlandish for that to be the case. So, um, number 5, staged disappearance. I mean, if this was the case, I think that Clint would have to be involved, which, maybe he was, and maybe he did stage it, or help Brian stage it. Maybe Brian wanted to escape and start a new life somewhere else. And so, but man, gosh, you would think, I don't know, two drunk guys like that have been drinking for 4 hours. What are they going to do? Are they going to like, is Brian going to sit on Clint's shoulders and have a long trench coat and like a hat, and they're going to like stumble out, and there's going to be like a 7 foot tall person?
yeah,
I just don't know
yeah,
how they can manage that.
yeah,
So I don't know. Seems bizarre.
yeah. You don't. I mean, from the sounds of it, it didn't seem like there was any body-sized bags that someone was carrying out or anything. But
Yeah. I mean, unless they, again, this could go back to the footage. Maybe they just didn't see that, but I don't know. I'm still leaning towards the accidental death.
you
Last one, we didn't talk about this. And for everybody who's watching right now, Josh and I, this is like the second or third time that Josh and I are recording this, because we pressed record, didn't record it. It was freaking awesome. So we're starting this over.
so
But we didn't talk about this. Yeah, go ahead.
Riverside, you owe us.
Yeah,
If you could
Riverside.
just sponsor this video.
Yeah, Riverside. This is what I have to say to you. Suck my back, Riverside. That might be backwards. Okay. Last one. Again, we didn't talk about this. Supernatural or high strangeness. How likely is it that he was abducted by aliens? I'm going to say it's probably 99.9% plausible that he was abducted by aliens.
So you do think he was?
Hey, I'm just saying the federal government has come out in the recent months and said that they have evidence that there are crafts in the sky, in our atmosphere, and in our airspace that uh, they don't know the technology. It doesn't belong to us. I'm going to leave that right there. Brian
Hmm.
is probably on one of them. That's all I'm going to say.
He probably he probably
I'm
is
still
an
going with the accidental
alien.
death though. Go
Brian probably is an alien. It's
he
like
came. His mission was to come down to get to know human life, and then as soon as he was about to get engaged, he's like, I've got to abort this mission. Beam me up, Scotty,"
yeah.
and that's it. Okay, so let's just say that we were in Brian's shoes. If you were Brian, let's say you wanted to disappear, how would you have done it?
I would have hid in the dumpster if there was a giant dumpster. I would have jumped in there and, and hid, and then snuck out at night once it got taken somewhere. But
Right on. If I was Brian, I would have jumped on my alien UFO spacecraft and just beamed.
he
uh,
he was probably in the ugly tuna saloon asking for some sugar water. If you if you've
yeah,
seen if you've seen Men in Black, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, exactly. Do you think Brian's mom's death played a bigger role than people think? And we didn't really touch this. I mean, if you watch the short intro, Brian's mom had just passed away about a month before this took place. So, do you think that played a bigger role than people think?
I mean, who knows the who knows the relationship that he had with his mom? I'm assuming it was pretty close. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, that's pretty recent for one. His mom died like a month ago, and then all of a sudden he died. So yeah, maybe he. That's pretty fresh for something like that to happen.
Yeah, and I don't. Well, I guess it does mention his dad. His dad, um, played a pretty big role in trying to find him. But you're right. You don't. I mean, you don't know what will push somebody over the edge. Maybe he had a super good relationship with his mom, and he was just about to propose to his girlfriend, and maybe he's like, I wanted my mom to be around for all this. Who knows? You just never know what pushes people to the edge. So, um, I guess last thing, if we were in his shoes, could someone plan a perfect disappearance like this in the age of tech? As I think about this, I think about the vast differences between what is this, 2006, 2008? I can't remember the exact date. But that was me early high school. I think about that versus now, and I am like, that is night and day difference. Do I think that someone could plan a perfect disappearance now? I think that would be really hard unless you lived in South Dakota or Wyoming like we do, where
Mhm.
we're a little bit behind the times with as far as tech. But um, do I think that somebody could do that in 2006? I think you probably could because people weren't all on board necessarily with it was like people tech was rolling out. I mean, we like I said about the phones, we had the LG chocolate, we had the Motorola Razor. So those things, they weren't exactly. the smartphones that we have nowadays, where it's you're talking about something and you open it up and that exact uh, thing is being advertised to you. It was just a different world, and I think the same
Hmm.
thing could probably be said about the cameras and the security systems back then. So that's my take. What do you think?
Yeah, with the amount of tracking that goes on cell phones nowadays and the improved quality on cameras and surveillances, I think it'd be really hard to disappear in a setting like that where there's a city and high technology.
Yeah.
Um, it's one thing if you're out in the boonies, like you were saying, where there's not much there. I think that if you have a chance of disappearing, it'd be somewhere like that. But yeah, with technology nowadays, I think it can be pretty difficult.
So let's just think about this. If Brian is still alive, do you think there's even a 1% chance that he's still alive somewhere?
Uh, no, I don't think he's alive. Sadly,
Yeah, I think so too. I would agree with that. I mean, 1% is small, but man, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm sticking with my theory about the garbage thing that we talked about, and I just don't think that that's possible. Maybe.
Mhm.
Um, but let's play the devil's advocate. Let's say he is alive. Where is he, and what is he doing?
Somewhere up in Canada, just hanging out in the forest with Bigfoot.
Heck yeah! I was gonna say he's probably like on the beach somewhere, just being a beach bum.
Yeah, he'd
Yeah,
probably be seen though,
randomly.
so I don't know. People can't seem to find
That's
Bigfoot, but so he's just hanging out with him.
Hey. Speaking of, I sent you this. There was a legitimate, in my opinion, Sasquatch sighting 10 miles from my house here in South Dakota. And
We
it was reported to, what is that? Let me look this up real quick. I just joined this group. It is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, established in 1995. And the call was taken. This is a grad student. This isn't like Joe Schmo off the street who is, has been drinking all day. This is a grad student driving through Boulder Canyon and reported this. So,
you, you need to stop walking in the forest, Caleb.
yeah, our friend Micah texted me after I shared that on Facebook, and he's like, "Should I tell them that it was just me out in the woods?" And I was like, yeah, at least give them a week. Let people. But all that being said, Sasquatch has made it to the Black Hills, and this is a revolutionary time. I'm going to go out and look for him.
Yeah.
See if I can meet up with him. All right. Let's say Brian is listening right now. We all know that there are millions of listeners to Sinisterum. So, Brian, if you're listening, Josh is going to tell you what he would say to you if this ever graces your ears.
Why would you go to a bar named Tuna Saluna? You shouldn't. You
You're just
should know
asking
better.
for trouble.
You should know better.
uh, yeah, that's a good question. That's a good thing. That's probably exactly what he would want to hear. I would say, Brian, come back. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, and that's the case of Brian Shaffer. That one's a little weird. You know, on this podcast, the thing that we wanted to do when we started this podcast is leave it pretty wide open, because there's a lot of weird things that happen, whether it be true crime, paranormal uh, things, paranormal, supernatural. Uh, I'm interested in, talking about cults and the psychology behind that and why people join cults, or why they refuse to leave sometimes. Um, weird historical things, cryptids, speaking of Bigfoot. And so let us know what you guys thought about this one. This one, the disappearance thing, I think there's a lot of interesting disappearances. I'm really into talking about the missing 411 cases. I actually have a personal tie-in with that kind of stuff, because one of my friends that I played football with, played in a championship football game with, and went to college with for a short time, actually disappeared, in a national park, and is one of the missing 411 cases. And so that the kind of stuff is interesting. But I want you guys to tell us what you like. Last time we covered the Watcher House, and that one was kind of a bizarre. What would you even call that? I guess it's maybe a stalking case. I don't know,
Yeah, just
but
a creep.
yeah, it's just a creep. But we're gonna kind of go and play off of different, and from different angles, and see what we like to talk about, because it's all about having fun. It's all about talking about weird things and just fun things. And um, but go ahead and drop us a comment and tell us what cases or subjects or topics that you'd like us to talk about. So, and then also I want you to tell us your theory about this case. I think Josh and I are pretty clear that we think it was an accident, and that Brian, probably fell into the dumpster of the construction site behind him, and then tragically got taken to a landfill or something like that, where he was never seen again. But we want to know what you guys think, and tell us your theories. So, Josh, anything you want to say?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay, right on. Simple man.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning into Sinisterum this week. And by the way, we're going to start to try to hopefully get this out once a week. We also have shorts that are dropping. And so likely we'll take some of the cases that we turn into shorts and expound on them for longer episodes. But if you have ideas or things that you want us to talk about, again, just let us know. Feel free to comment below, and please subscribe, like this video, comment for the algorithm, and help us to grow. We just like talking about these cases, and we hope you like it too. So tune in next week for more Sinisterum.